Fuel the Fire segment of Ignite Success features a woman who's done great service in the city of Jacksonville for a long time. Alberta Hipps is the president of the Hipps Group. Welcome, Alberta.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. Now, I know you have an illustrious career of service and working in government and doing all sorts of things. You were city council president. How long ago was that?
That was in 2000.
2000. So, wow. So,
it was
almost
a while
20
ago.
years ago. Yes,
Yeah.
it was. How many city council presidents have we had that have been women?
I think 4.
Only four
Yeah.
out of the a couple hundred
Yeah.
that we've had. Yes,
Yeah.
okay. And tell us about your background, what your career history has been, because I know you've done so many fascinating things.
Well, I was a registered nurse, and I worked in healthcare for a number of years, and worked at Baptist and pediatric intensive care when I started out.
Wow,
And
that's
then-
at Baptist Hospital. Oh, wonderful.
And then went over to St. Vincent's. I was at St. Vincent's for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
And worked in nursing on the floors and in pulmonary rehab, and then in administration.
I didn't know that you were a nurse. That's so interesting. And so has that informed your career from going forward, the compassion and the empathy for people?
Well, it has. And the other piece that it has is I transitioned into the political life.
Right.
Corporations, hospitals, anywhere you work, there's always a political aspect to that.
Yes, there is, sadly.
Yeah, it's true.
So you learned the art of diplomacy very early, huh?
Well, I did, especially when the head sister at one point asked me to represent the hospital with the Riverside Avondale Preservation Group when we were buying up some homes and putting offices in them and things like that. So you learn to really come to consensus when you can.
So that's a really important point. So let's talk about this, because I think that this is an area where women have trouble. We have trouble with confrontation. We have trouble when we're trying to get together. Women do like to collaborate, but I think sometimes women are afraid to put forward what they really want. What's your advice around that?
Well, I think you have to be clear about what you want, and then you have to be flexible. You have to put the other person's hat on and really try to see their point of view, and then get to as reasonable an outcome as you can, keeping true to the principles of what you would like out of the agreement.
And I would imagine not being emotional is an important aspect of that too, right?
It is. And probably when you're in a situation that you're working through something like that, you should have a little time with yourself every morning.
In meditation or prayer or quiet, something, and get yourself...
When I was at the hospital, I was head of the education department once, and we had this great training film, and it was called Pack Your Parachute.
Oh.
I never will forget that.
Huh.
It means first thing in the morning, make sure that you have the skills and be mindful about the day, and so that you can land on your feet at night.
Well, it's so important. I just did a segment last week about morning routines and how what you do in the morning sets up the tone for your whole day.
Does.
And you have to start with your inner self and what you're going to do inside first.
That's right.
That's wonderful. So you went from nursing into politics?
I did, and the reason being, in '93, it was announced that Cecil Naval Air Station was going to be abandoned by the government and given into the inventory of the city of Jacksonville. And there was a group put together on what's the best use for that property at 17,000 acres.
Wow.
And they came up with the idea to put the largest correctional facility in the state of Florida there. And I live near there. And I didn't think that was a very good idea.
So that's how you got into politics.
It is.
Wow.
And the rest is history. And it was a ground roots, effort with many friends and people and my church family and high school people I went to school with. And so I was elected in 1995.
Wow. And then how did you go from there to the city council?
Well, that was
when you were elected. And you became president after how many years?
Well, I was president in the year 2000.
So 5 years later. Yes, that's great. And served for 2 years more after that?
I came off with term limits. I came off in 2003.
2003. And you now have a consultancy, and you help people with dealing with government and commercial projects. Tell us more about that.
Well, I do land use and zonings. I do business development and community outreach. My daughter, Laura, and I have this business together. It's a real pleasure to work with your daughter.
I bet.
Every day.
I bet.
And we help people if they have a piece of property and they want to use it for something different than it's zoned for. We help with that. And then we help people when they're thinking about different business development ideas. And we do community outreach. We work with the Aviation Authority on their community outreach endeavors with other companies too. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I know that you've been giving back to this community for a long time, and you've done a lot of good in the community. So thank you for your service. I know that Alberta is one of our top women igniting success that we'll be honoring this weekend. So thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.